Hi there, I'm working on a drawing. This is going to be a 30-minute drawing, kind of like my 30-minute acrylic portraits. I plan on doing this drawing in 30 minutes, roughly. I'm not going to put up my usual timer, but I'll try to get this done at 2:15. It's almost 1:45 right now. So Father, bless this drawing in Jesus' name. Help me to do it well, and I pray you bless the students that are watching, anybody that's watching, that it would encourage them. Give them some tips on how to draw portraits more accurately in Jesus' name. And I also pray that this drawing would encourage the lady it's going to. Amen. Yeah, this is actually a drawing for an old friend back when I used to live in town. And this is one of her friends who's deceased, I believe, and it's just going to comfort and encourage the family. So I'm going to start just by kind of blocking in the overall proportions. I have a lead stick that I'm using here. I don't think it's actually lead, it's just kind of a dark graphite chalk. And I'm going to just kind of block in the overall structure here. So we will, let's just zoom in a bit. Okay, her head's cropped off here in the image, so I have to get a sense for where her head's going to reside. I don't think it's going to be cropped off in my rendition of her. I have to kind of decide like where her head is going to be, and then I want to have a little bit of her torso in there, and maybe to about here, and then the neck structure. So right now I'm just kind of blocking in some very light suggestions of what's going to take place in this portrait. Again, just a portrait sketch, so it's not going to look like a masterpiece, but this is the idea of just kind of getting this in simply and doing what we can do within a short time frame. Okay, so we have semblance of her chin right here, kind of the head, and then we're going to get in some of the facial features in ever so slightly. Start of the eyes, and then we got the nose. Her head's kind of turned up a little bit, so the nose is a little bit closer to her eyes than what it would usually be. So now we have the mouth right here, and we want to block that in. Just basically you want to make sure you get all these ratios correct between the the distance of the eyes to the length of the mouth, and proportions are very, very important. You got the chin here, kind of block that in. That's kind of the idea of her jawline. Little wrinkle under her eye. Got some hair flowing down here, and then pay attention to where the ear lines up with the mouth. Just got an earring right there, just kind of block that in, and then the hair. Then we have the neckline, and then this would be her clothing. Just want to get that in. And this other side of her shirt. And there's her arm. Can't see the back side, so I just kind of have to guesstimate what that might look like. Maybe something like that. And then here's the back of her hair, how that would come out. Back of her head. Since her head is turned, there's going to be a little more distance between the eye to the end of the hair. So this actually is the halfway point here. We want to bring that out just a little bit. There we go, and now we want to add on a little bit to the nose. So I'm going to start defining the features a little bit now at this point. Using my kneaded eraser just to do any erasures that I have to. Yeah, I just want to overall get the sense of her eyes in here. Got the lips. I just want to get that form in there. A little bit of the shading structure. That would be good if we can get that blocked in. Just kind of block that in. Very, very lightly. We'll need to get in a little more of the shading here. So she's got a lot of her face in shadow. I'm going to have to break this piece off so I can control it better and do a little more shading like this, just on using the side of this lead stick. Okay, and we just get a little bit of a darker shadow there, suggesting her jawline. Now we want to put in a little bit of the structure of her neck. And we'll put in some darker lines just suggesting her hair. So it's a little darker on the top. There's a bit of a shadow right there. Just darken this area a bit for her eyebrows. I'm going to use this longer stick for the details. It gives me a little more control. And I'm going to need to adjust this eye. I noticed that it's a little bit out of position. It should be actually a little bit lower. I should have noticed that first before I started putting in the shading, but oh well. Yeah, it should be a little bit lower than the other one, so we're just going to lower that down. Get some of the shading in here. Something like that. Well, the eyes are important. We want to make sure we have them as good as we can get them here. There's just a little bit of light shining on the one eye there. I want to get that in. Put that little line on the top for the upper eyelid fold crease. Darken the nostril a bit. Let me get this wing of the nose. And let's see here. Want to just bring this out a little bit. This nose ridge area. Okay, let's get a little more detail for the hair. Just try to block that in. Get in a few little areas in the back. There's a highlight on this side, so we want that to be just a little bit lighter there. Okay, I want to make sure I've got the size of her features correct. Her chin will look a little bit longer than it normally would just because of the angle of her face. And a little bit of a darker edge there to the mouth. And we'll add this nasolabial fold to the left side. That's important just to show some of the contours of her face. Just a little more detail on the eyebrow. Her eyebrows are quite sparse, quite thin, so I want to make sure I don't overdo it there. Just darken this area a bit to suggest the lighting. And the lighting structure is important. I'm just going to darken her clothing now. Again, using the side of the pencil. And we'll use a little bit of tissue to smooth this out. You can blend some of these other areas as well. And we'll add a few more layers to it. Just keep adding some layers with the time we have. Get some texture in her hair. Try to show that little lock in the back. And we'll use a little bit of a darker value here on the top. I really have to guess what it looks like here on the top. So I can't see that part. Suggest that shoulder on the left. And a dark shadow here for the area right by her chest. Okay, there's a dark line suggesting the armpit. And we do need to get quite a bit of shading right here on her shoulder to really get the volume of that area. Okay, let's see if we can get a little more detail on her eyes. A little more definition on that eyelid crease. And the nose. A little more definition there. And we'll put a little more shading on her lip to define that feature more on her face. Just going to erase this part of her mouth. I want that edge to come up a little bit higher, just to suggest maybe she's smiling. I'm going to put a little shading to the right of the wing of her nose. And maybe extend the edge of her eye out just a little bit. So drawing really is kind of fundamental to painting. You know, if you learn to draw better, you're going to paint better as well. I drew for many years freehand before I ever started painting, you know, as a child. And I didn't use a grid or projector, I just drew freehand. That was the only way I knew how. And I learned a lot by doing freehand drawings. And so I would encourage you to do some freehand drawings from photographs or live or whatever you can do a couple of times a week, and that'll pay off dividends in your portrait painting skills as an artist. Just going to continue to add some shading here under her hair. I probably need to do a little more freehand drawing myself. You know, I don't do as much as I used to. Practice what I preach, because you can get a little bit rusty. But like riding a bike, what you learn does come back. It's a certain threshold of skill that you learn by practice. It's not just all you know, raw talent. It is, a lot of it is hard work. It's practice. You got to put in that time. And as you do that, you'll get better. Many people have a lot of talent as an artist, but they were afraid to use it for whatever reason. You know, a lot of times it's because it's not a promising career for many, or at least it doesn't appear that it is. But I'm doing art full-time, teaching full-time. I love it. I'm getting paid well for what I do. And I thank God that I can do this for a living. But I would have never known if I hadn't stepped out in faith and just gone for it. So that's what I'm trying to say, is that there's a lot of people with talent as artists, and they've never used it. So, you know, if you think maybe you might be an artist, or just, you know, if you have the desire to create, to paint, to draw portraits, you can do it. Desire is half the battle. Just wanting to do it and believing you can. And you just got to find the right teacher to help you to get from where you are to where you need to be. And practice, put in the time and do it. And you'll get better. You know, I've seen many of my students, some of whom have never done a portrait before in their life, and all of a sudden they start getting better as they practice and use the gift God gave them. So you can do that too. I'll be here to help you if you so choose. I'd love to help you, and I got a lot of lessons on this channel you can check out. Alright, so I think we're getting a little more of her form in here. Let's just put a little shading here to kind of separate her cheek from the rest of her face. I'm going to need to just blur that a little bit. Maybe just feather that with this kneaded eraser. Okay, we'll maybe take this shorter piece of lead and just go in there and blend that in a bit more. Now, here we've got, I'm going to add a little bit of thickness to the strap on the upper part, and then we've got Maybe a little more distance on her neck. I want to bring that neckline down just a bit. Let the hair come down a little bit lower at that point. I just want to make sure I'm getting that anatomically correct. So her neck, yeah, it does come down a little ways there. And she's got this necklace. I want to get that in. It's going to be very skinny, so we're just going to see it kind of in side profile. A little shading on that neck area. Soften it with the kneaded eraser. Maybe just darken the interior a little bit here. Okay, let's take a look at this angle here of her face on the lower left side and just make sure we have it accurate. So it looks like her chin comes out a little wider and the nasolabial fold, that laugh line, comes out a little further too. Just want to make sure we have that accurate. Get a little more shading on the lip. And a little bit of shading to separate that philtrum from the rest of the face. Just continue to add some shading and depth here. A little bit of shading in the middle, hair on the top, just to kind of guess what that might look like. I want to make sure it's known that she has blonde hair, so just add a little bit of the highlights in here. I think her head is just a little skinnier on this right hand side. So I'm just going to taper that in a little bit. Okay, and then a little bit of form to the bottom here of her clothing. Just darken that area by her armpit a bit. And this area up here, because this would be in shadow, let's use some strokes going the other way. Right. I'll just darken this area by her arm a little bit more, and then just get a bit of separation right here, because we find that it's just a bit lighter on this other side here. It's a bit of a highlight right there. I want to capture that. Okay, I'm just going to bring her neckline down a bit more. There we go. Get some darker areas inside of her hair. Even though when people have blonde hair, they still can have some very dark areas inside when the areas are, in shadow. So it's something to keep in mind, to get those darker areas in there, and not just consider it all as very light in value, even though, like I say, their hair is blonde. So here right by her neck, that area is quite dark because it's not receiving much light. And then up here it's a little darker too, and then a couple darker spots to build up some texture. Okay, I'm just going to add a little shadow up here to allow her cheekbone to stick out more by comparison. And then a little bit of a shadow right there. Darken the edge of her hairline so that is apparent. Just going to add a little bit of a shading right there by her mouth. Actually, it's supposed to come out a little bit more that way. And just go over with the tissue and soften some of the lead strokes just a little bit. Okay, I'm going to just darken the lines here on her mouth. Add a little more to that. Darken this a bit more. The eyes. Show a little of the eyelashes there. Darken the other side a bit more as well. I just want to make sure her eyelashes taper on that right side. Get a little more shading here right around her nose, just to allow that little highlight on the cheek to stand out more. Just a little highlight right there. Okay, I'm going to erase that again. Just try to develop that nuance. I'm just going to add a little bit of a line here just to give the suggestion of her chin kind of coming up right there. And a little bit of shading on the neck just to develop the tendons and that platysmal banding right on her neck area. Right there. I'm going to get a little bit of a darker edge right against that strap. Okay, let's erase some of the smears here. And just define the edges just a little bit more on the top. Now normally I don't suggest to define things with line, but in a sketch that's necessary because we don't have time to develop the differentiation between all the values. So you will have to use line to separate on a sketch, separate your forms. So I am defining the edges with a little bit of a darker line. Just see if I can get a thinner line on some of these highlighted areas, because that would be more appropriate to have a thinner rather than thicker line. You'd want to reserve that thicker line for areas that are darker in value naturally. Okay, this area should be just a little bit flatter. Just going to define her eyebrows once more. A little bit of that wing of the nose. Jawline a little bit more. See if I can get a little bit of the idea of some tufts of hair coming out on the edge. Just define this neck area a bit more as well. I think her neck is a little bit skinnier. There we go. And let's just refine that chin a bit more as well. I think maybe her chin projects out just a little bit more. Let's just give that a little more visual weight. And get that shading going up to the edge. I just want to refine this little highlight there on her lip. There we have that philtrum. Soften that line a bit up there. Okay, I think I'm going to need to stop off here. Let's sign it, call it good. Let's sign it and call it good. Right. So there we have it. There's our 30-minute sketch. Hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, overall I like how it turned out for 30 minutes. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to this channel for more videos like this. And then at realisticacrylic.com I have many different videos on portrait painting. And of course sketching is a big part of getting realistic acrylic portraits. So check out realisticacrylic.com. There's downloadable guides there you can print off and you can use them to make your portraits better. Alright, so hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. God bless, and we'll talk to you soon.